So welcome again, everyone. I'm your host, PL McMillan. I'm also the editor of this lovely space horror anthology, which is, of course, why we're here today to celebrate its launch next week. Joining me today are five amazing authors and one very young fan and superstar, David's daughter. So we have Bridget D. Brave, David Warren, Rachel Searcey, joseph.Andre.thomas, and unseen but not unappreciated Patrick Barb, who won't be having his video on today, but you'll be able to hear his dulcet tones anyways. So also, just in case you need it, there are closed captions available on this event. It's just in the Zoom options below. Just click on show captions. It does a pretty good job. So if you need it, feel free to slap those on as well. And without further ado, we're going to start this party. We do have 5 readings today from the authors you see here, as well as 3 giveaways. So you have a chance to win a copy of the book and a bunch of sticker swag that I designed for the book as well. How many times can I say book? Who knows? So that's really exciting. So we're going to kick it off with the unseen Patrick Barb. Super exciting. Dun, dun, dun. And again, this is coming out next week on the 31st. I'll be sharing links. So if you don't win a copy today, you can still pre-order or grab your copy. There's still special swag bundle copies available if Bridget hasn't bought them all or her family hasn't. I saw those orders come in, Bridget.
Yeah. I forget to get copies for people. I'm like, crap.
All right. So again, starting with Patrick Barb, who is an author of weird, dark, and horrifying tales, currently living and trying not to freeze to death in St. Paul, Minnesota. He is the author of the novellas Gargantuana's Ghost from Grey Matter Press, Turn from Alien Buddha Press, and then Nut House, which is serialized in Cosmic Horror Monthly, as well as the novelette Helicopter Parenting in the Age of Drone Warfare, and the forthcoming dark fiction collection Pre-Approved for Haunting from Keylight Books. He is an active member of the HWA and a full member of the SFWA. Visit him at patrickbarb.com. Well, hello, the ghost of Patrick Barb.
Hello. I am here. I know we're reading from a space horror anthology tonight, but I'm afraid I am suffering from a lack of space horror when your kids have really boogery fingers and touch your eye, and then you're forced to appear to you all as John Hurt for the evening. So that's a little peek behind the curtain of the glamorous life of a writer.
So you're reading from the story Red Rovers. Can you tell us a little what it's about?
Sure. This story is basically about a private mission to Mars, sort of funded by the very elite and billionaires, sort of tech billionaires who maybe think that they know more than they actually know, who then run afoul of some the Mars rovers, who have been sort of changed by contact with this sort of alien presence that has gotten to the red planet before we have.
Amazing. Okay, hit us with it.
Alrighty. Red Rovers. Children. They sent me to Mars with their children. With oxygen running low and the sealant she'd smeared across the jagged tears in her spacesuit already disintegrating, Miranda hid behind a blast-damaged column in the underground Martian bunker. In a few moments, she'd die, like all the others. The whirring whine of the drill against the door made Miranda's teeth ache. Her helmet, covered in blood, dried and thick like licorice pieces, prevented her from seeing well. Her gloves proved no better than woolen winter mittens when it came to dislodging the gunk from her face mask. The crash of metal echoed through the tunnels. The rumbling approach of wheels driving over thick layers of radiation-proof tunnel flooring followed. Miranda had spent too much time thinking about children. and in her final moments she recalled an old children's playground song, one she never got to share with her daughter. Red Rover, send Miranda on over. Of course, Devin Sachs claimed to know the best way to the bunker. I don't need your silly hollow maps, he insisted. Colonel Miranda Norman didn't want to fight with the primary investor in the Mars mission, so she took the front passenger seat in their all-terrain transport vehicle. She left as much space between her and the handy trillionaire as possible. Trying her damnedest not to grind her teeth, she gripped the rumble bar next to her seat and held on as the vehicle took hard bounces along the dry, rocky ground. Miranda hated being planet-side. Whether on Earth or Mars, she felt lost when she abandoned the expansiveness of space. Orange and brown rocks sprayed behind the back wheels as Sachs cut figure eights like a stunt car driver. Then he punched his foot down on the pedal when they went up and over a hill. The vehicle's wheels lifted off the ground. The transport soared higher than it would have done performing the same jump back on Earth. Miranda closed her eyes, enjoying the temporary feeling of liftoff. Hey, watch it, Devin! From the back of the transport, Araya, one of the 4 young elites whose parents' investments in the Mars colonization push had secured them a seat on the first manned mission, screeched her discontent. Seconds later, the front wheels returned to the ground. Miranda snapped back to reality in time to avoid biting through her lip. What's the matter, Araya? Don't like how Daddy hot rods? Sachs asked in his non-ironic Eurotrash accent. The cringe factor of Sachs's attempts at flirtation increased as the expedition proceeded. Miranda shuddered, thinking about how much of a creep she'd learned great and grand Devin Sachs could be while on the 140-million-mile trip to the Red Planet. Pathetic, too. Please pay attention to where we're going, Mr. Sachs. Despite her disgust, Miranda couldn't escape the reality Devin Sachs was still a trillionaire. As such, she understood what being in his favor might yield. He didn't slow down. Then, a rolling mystery object's metallic plating appeared as a sudden glimmer, reflecting off Miranda's face shield, blinding her temporarily. She didn't know what was coming. She only knew it was moving fast. Faster even than they were. Stop! Questions raced through her head. Where'd it come from? Behind us? In front? To the side? Where'd it go? Sachs must have seen whatever the hell it was too, and like Miranda had no idea where it went. The steering wheel jerked from side to side in his trembling hands. His grab boots tap danced under the steering column, reaching for. His foot smashed down hard on the brake. Miranda gripped the rumble bar so tight she worried she'd crush it. Her helmet receiver roared with the static of everyone's screams. The shouting stopped, punctuated by the gasp of the brake's pneumatics. Miranda looked to her left and watched Sachs's spacesuit-covered ass come off the driver's seat, his body thrust forward to resemble a question mark. The transport rocked from side to side. Dust clouds spun into miniature cyclones, poison air, poison dust swirling all around them. I've got you, Miranda said, grabbing Sachs by his pack and pulling him back onto the seat. She looked at his feet under the steering column. He'd compressed the brakes, and they rested on level ground. So why can I still hear wheels turning, grinding against the rocks? A shadow fell across the front of the transport, blanketing Sachs and Miranda in a velvet shade. Seconds later, the rover rolled down off a slight ridge on the inclined path ahead. Moving past his near brush with death, Sachs appeared comforted by the rover's arrival. With a press of a button on the dash, he shut down the transport. Sliding from his seat, he bounced slightly as his grav boots touched the rust-colored ground. Wowie! A real-life rover! Before Miranda got a "wait" out, the would-be Prince of Mars closed the gap between transport and rover. The roaming machine extended a camera down from its topmost point, moving its metal appendage with what looked like insectoid alien curiosity. Another mechanical arm with a secondary camera on the end stretched from the rover's side. The camera's lens narrowed as the rover zoomed in on their transport. Miranda hated the feeling of being watched, of being judged. One more camera ahead, and we'll have a robotic Cerberus on our hands. Yo, astronaut lady, should we get out too, or stay in the transport? Her words came at a clipped cadence, a speech pattern retained from her days in Space Force. They shut the speaker, whichever teen from the back of the transport it was, up. Meanwhile, Sachs placed his hands on the rover's shielding, solar sails, wheels. like he needed to ensure the machine was real and not some Martian mirage. Miranda watched from a distance, unsure about what to do next. When faced with any unexpected development, a Mars rover appearing where no Mars rover should be, getting saddled with a space crew with little experience who didn't give a damn about any mission, a dead child meant to live and wait for her back on Earth, any of those things, Miranda shut it all out and turned to data, statistics, and cold hard facts. NASA announced the last rover's decommissioning nearly 10 years ago. Mr. Sachs, please step away from the rover. It isn't a part of our mission param. Screw off to parameters, I say. Look at this. Sachs caressed the rover. That's strange, though. How's it in such good shape? Not a dent or scratch. Not a nick. Nothing. Even if it had lasted this long, wouldn't it show some wear and tear? Miranda slid out of the transport and onto the planet's surface. She kept her eyes on Sachs and the rover. Then, a second glimmer caught her eye. The smooth metal of the rover facing Sachs appeared to ripple. Concentric circles grew wider and wider across the plating, like the rover peeled back its skin to show Miranda its beating heart. At this glimpse of the impossible, salty tears fell from her eyes. The immediate hum of her suit's internal regulators, converting the water and storing it for later, distracted Miranda. She missed the emergence of the rover's third arm, the one with the diamond-tipped drill bit at the end. The drill whined and its head spun. The high-pitched sound reminded Miranda of a dog in heat, desperate, but unsure of what it needed to satisfy a sudden urge with the potential to become an all-encompassing concern. Hey, you guys, check it out. This rover, it's moving, changing. Ms. Miranda, you never told us NASA employed nanotech in the old rover program, Sachs said. They didn't. What? The rover shoved Sachs down, and the whooshing sound of his breath knocked from his body echoed inside everyone else's helmets. Oh, she wants to play. Sachs didn't sound so confident, though. Sir, stand up. Step away from the rover and back up. Come toward us in the transport. As she spoke, Miranda moved in front of the vehicle. She kept watching the rover as it towered over her trillionaire employer. She backed into the driver's seat, still watching. Come on, Mr. Sachs, you've got this, she said, like a parent coaching a toddler, encouraging them to take their first circus clown steps. Sachs said, Yeah, okay, sure, let me... Whatever he meant to say next got drowned out by the cresting whine of the rover's diamond-tipped drill. Designed for coring out rock samples from the mountains of Mars, the drill pressed down against Sachs's faceplate instead. Down, 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 harder and harder. Is someone going to help me? It wasn't even a cry for help. Sachs had gone so long having everything just work out in his favor that he didn't even recognize that he'd reached a moment when he should scream. By the time he did, it was too late. Everyone in the expedition wore state-of-the-art spacesuits, unbreakable, impenetrable, claims begging to be proven wrong. The whine and howl of the unrelenting drill reached a point where Miranda considered taking off her helmet and shoving gloved fingers into her ears. Then something popped. A loud shriek followed like a radio turned up full blast. Everyone's comms shorted out. Then the drill broke through Sachs's reinforced face shield. The curved grooves of the drill bit went around and around and around, grinding polymer blend plastic and glass down into Sachs's face, shattering his paid-for perfect white-capped teeth, pureeing the fat pink slug of his tongue. Blood droplets fell upward into the sky. The hellish atmosphere of the red planet did the rest of the work, producing a cloud of blood steam to envelope the gory tableau, hiding the worst of it from sight. Once the initial shock of the rover's attack passed, Miranda offered a quick thanks to whatever higher power reigned on Mars for wrecking her comms and causing her to miss out on hearing what a trillionaire tech wunderkind sounded like as he died, bloody-faced and helpless. She looked away from the blood cloud and turned to the distraught, panicked faces, searching for answers at the back of the transport. Children. Still strapped in to the bench seats, the four remaining civilians seemed to move their mouths together as one. Miranda knew how to read lips, so she made out a few words in piecemeal fashion. Die. Help. What? God. Like she expected. Someone screamed, no words, only a silent pantomime primal exclamation, reminding Miranda of old terrors she believed were left behind on her home planet. Didn't I see enough of what someone making those screams looked like? while staring into the mirrors of those children's hospital bathrooms back on Earth. She signaled for the others to stay seated and buckled in. She motioned for them to hold on to something. Hold on and don't let go. She didn't have time to wait and see if they'd understood. Even as the rover's drill continued pinning sacks to the ground like a butterfly on display, two new shadows, tall, towering forms with spider-like attachments already out, appeared on either side of the transport. Miranda switched the vehicle back on and activated its nav system, the one Sachs refused to use. He threw the vehicle into reverse. Back up, back up, back up. A blinking orange beacon on the dash showed her target, the machine-built, reinforced, climatized bunker. First things first, Miranda needed to get clear of the two new rovers fast approaching, threatening a pincer move on the transport. The rest came from instinct and adrenaline. And I'm going to stop it right there.
Amazing. You really know how to drill home the suspense. That's what they pay me for, people.
Hey.
So what inspired this story?
Oh, what inspired this story? Oh, I think it was a little bit of wanting to do kind of a chopping mall-esque story, but in space horror. I had the idea for a while, and when this anthology came around, it was really a perfect opportunity for it. There's also a little bit in there about the sort of using space travel and exploration as a sort of like thing that's only for the elite, and the sort of like that you see like with these billionaires and stuff that are going to space, and really it's kind of segregating in a certain degree space travel, and so it's a little bit touching a little bit on that as well.
We had some comments in chat. Nina was cheering for the rover because she's crazy that way. Love you, Nina. We actually have a special guest in the audience, none other than David Wellington, who wrote our foreword. That's always like, but right there, yeah. David was kind enough to write the foreword for us. I had reached out to him because he writes amazing space horror. If you haven't already, check out The Last Astronaut and the newest one, Paradise 1, which is part of a series, which I read. It's a larger book. I read it in like 3 days. I couldn't put it down. And then I had like that really devastating realization that I'd read it and the second one's not out yet. But welcome, David. Thanks for coming and supporting us, and thank you for writing the foreword. He said it wow, that was even better read out loud, Patrick.
Thank you.
And Bob Warlock, who's another author in the anthology who isn't reading tonight, said, a friend of mine just saw the cover and said it looks like The Thing, and the Star Wars had a Blade Runner themed wedding. Oh, that's really well. Yeah, thank you. The cover is done by, and I'm hopefully going to say his name right, Stefan Koidl, Koidl. He does amazing work. So if you're interested in and you really like this cover, well, it's actually behind me. Ooh, magic. Feel free to reach out to him. So thank you, Patrick Barb, for that amazing reading and kicking off the event with such a batshit crazy beginning. And next up, we have David Warren. Yay, David from the Enterprise. So David, Enterprise. David Warren is a neuroscientist and Canadian expat. Yay, Canadians. His short fiction has recently appeared in Howls from the Dark Ages, an anthology of medieval horror, and Dark Matter magazine. When not writing, he enjoys patching modular synths and playing lightsabers with his kids. He can be found at worncassettes.com. Hello, David.
Hey.
So, what are you reading for us today?
I'm going to read like a scene and a half from my story, The Vela Remnant.
Okay.
I've been going back and forth between reading like a super high action scene or reading what is basically space PowerPoint. I think since we're all on Zoom, I'm going to read space PowerPoint.
Okay.
So,
Perfect.
you know, if you need to go take a break or whatever, that's fine.
Well,
The
do you want to
scene
tell
starts.
us? Do you
Oh,
want to
sure,
tell
go
us
ahead.
what the story is about first, and then
Um,
dive in?
oh man, what is it about? It's
What
about so
is
many
it
things,
about?
ma'am.
What isn't it
Um,
Wow!
about?
Whoa!
it's about a spooky signal from a pulsar very far away, and it may, well, the mystery will be revealed these scenes, but it there may be some bad shit waiting at the pulsar, basically, and the idea was kind of like mixing the fact that pulsars, if you look at them right, if you're an astrophysicist or whatever, they make noise. And really reminded me, after listening to a bunch of them, trying to get some inspiration, of like the number stations that, form sort of like an underground meme world of creepy pasta and creepy stuff. So I tried to mix the two with drugs and spaceships, and that's what it's about.
Okay.
So the scene I'm going to read is Space PowerPoint. Our main character just found out that her spacecraft that she's a crew member of got commandeered by the United States Space Agency, and she's none too happy about that. So I'll dig into it. As Lana walked into the mess hall for the briefing with their new UNSA bosses, she couldn't help but scowl at the newcomers. Next to her, her best friend and the ship's physician, Bertrand, swore under his breath, "So these are the SOs." The one standing next to the captain was clearly an admiral of some sort. The silver hair, the pips on his uniform, the way he waited for the briefing to begin, cool as a fucking cucumber. The second one looked like an academic, though Lana couldn't quite place the discipline. The last of the newcomers was engrossed in his tablet and, holy shit, Bert, I recognize that guy, Lana whispered. Which one? Replied Bertrand. Tablet. A former lover? Bertrand said, exaggerating his French accent for effect. Lana stifled a laugh. Not likely. He's a man of God. At the front of the room, Captain Pereira cleared her throat. The briefing was about to begin. Now, I know everyone has questions about why corporate rerouted us to Neptune. The Admiral here will explain the details of our new assignment. Admiral? The Admiral stepped forward. I am Admiral Park of the United Nations Space Agency. With me are Professor Parrish and his associate, Mr. Jessup. On behalf of the UNSA, we thank you for welcoming us on board. The Admiral motioned to Jessup, who tapped a button on his tablet. The display on the nearby wall screen changed to a top-down map of the local stellar neighborhood. An icon indicated Rama's position next to Sol. Our destination is here, said the Admiral. Jessup tapped another button, and the map panned away from Sol. 10 light years. Past Sirius and Epsilon Indy. 20 light years. Past Gliese 832. On the opposite edge of the map, the Aquila Rift disappeared from view. Tau Centauri flew by, 100 light years. Lana's heart skipped a beat as the map picked up speed. Omicron Velorum, 500 light years. This has got a fucking joke. The map slowed to a stop. In the center of the display was the Vela SNR. Pulsar J0835-4510, the beating heart of the Vela supernova remnant. An icon appeared highlighting the pulsar and listing its current distance to Sol, 959 light years. Nobody spoke. Lana played the map back in her mind. Most ships, Rama included, had seldom ventured out past 20 light years from Earth. Commercial crews like theirs were superstitious of straying too far from Sol. 1,000 light years into deep space was unheard of outside of a handful of UNSA long-range vessels. It was dangerous. One false move or a malfunction with the ship's drive and they'd be long dead before anyone ever heard their distress signal. What the fuck had corporate gotten us into? Lana broke the silence. Norton, can Rama handle the radiation? At the sound of his name, Norton, the ship's pudgy engineer, sat up straight. It depends on how close we're talking. As long as we stay outside the remnant, we should be fine. We will close to a distance of 10 astronomical units, the Admiral stated. From the remnant's edge? Asked Norton. From Vela. A murmur passed around the room. But that's the distance of Saturn to the Sun. Norton pointed at the image on the wall screen. At that proximity, if we so much as graze Vela's gamma ray, we're dead. Lana was next. She focused on Captain Pereira. Captain, you can't seriously be considering this. If anything goes wrong out there, it'll be a millennia before Earth finds out about it. May I remind the Admiral that we may travel faster than light, but our radio transmissions don't. Captain Pereira raised her palm to quiet the room. I'm sure the Admiral has some idea in mind for keeping us safe. Isn't that correct, Admiral? It is. Station's technicians have uploaded nav data into your ship's computer. It contains a flight path that will see us safely through the remnant. No one is going to get irradiated by a pulsar, I assure you. Now, said the Admiral, I know this is a lot to take in. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Lana raised her hand. There are any number of pulsars closer to Sol. What is so special about Vela? The UNSA is interested in gathering close-range telemetry. Next question. Lana nudged Bertrand. That wasn't really an answer, she whispered. The plot thickens, Bertrand replied. Now watch as I step in the shit. He stood up. Admiral, why not use one of your own ships? Bertrand asked. Or does the UNSA prefer this mission be kept off the books? The captain took a step towards him. Bertrand, sit down. It's okay, Captain, the Admiral smiled. Doctor, it's nothing so sinister. All our deep space vessels are otherwise engaged. If I may speak frankly, we're in the position of having too much money and not enough ships. Now, if there are no further questions, Lana's chair screeched as she stood up. Admiral, I have a question. Captain Pereira shook her head and put a palm over her eyes. Yes? Asked the Admiral. Lana pointed at Jessup. Why did you bring a priest? Interstellar space, 601 light years from PSR J0835-4510. What exactly am I looking for? Lana was hunched over Bertrand's computer in the ship's medbay. On the display was the first page of a scientific article. Entheogenic alterations of consciousness from consumption of dimethyltryptamine provoke a common hallucinatory experience across members of distant religious traditions. Do you see it yet? Asked Bertrand. Why are you reading this weird? Oh, shit! At last she has found it. Lana traced a finger over the names of two of the paper's authors, Edward Parrish and Mason Jessup of the Max Planck Institute for Entheobiology and Psychedelic Research. My, oh my, Father Jessup, do you have some explaining to do? An admiral, a psychiatrist, and a priest. The plot, Bert, don't you dare, thickens. Asshole. Bertrand winked at her. There's something else I want you to see. He brought up the system's search tool. Although Rama no longer had access to the Sol internetwork, the ship's computer held a vast storehouse of scientific information inside its storage arrays. Bertrand entered Edward Parrish into the search field. 0 search results. He then entered Mason Jessup and got the same answer. I don't understand. You found the papers. They're clearly in the database. Yes, but someone blocked their names from showing up in searches. The Admiral? He clearly doesn't want us to know who we're traveling with. Lana stepped back from the computer. What the fuck is an entheogen? It means something like generating the divine inside the self. It's used to describe substances that make you see God and the little green men. LSD, psilocybin, DMT. It seems the professor and the priest were studying the effects of DMT on, true believers. Here, let me read you a part of their paper. There has long been debate among scholars of religion as to whether the psychedelic experience brought about by DMT consumption is equivalent to a genuine religious experience. In our view, experiencing the pure light of God is, at its core, a biochemical process. One that, with the use of DMT, we can bring into the lab with the hopes of unlocking a psychopharmacological route that will enable us to amplify the experience, to bring us into contact with the pure light of God. I don't like this, Bert, not one bit. Lana paced around the medibeds. Are there more articles? Dozens from Parrish, perhaps 4 of them with the priest. And they're all about drugs? All of them. Okay, let's bring this to the captain. It's time our guests tell us what we're really doing out here. NC.
Yay! Tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind that story.
I don't know. I was like really struggling when the call came out to try and come up with an idea, and I got hooked on pulsars after watching like a lecture from this like famous woman scientist who like discovered pulsars, but then got like screwed over by her PhD advisor. It's a long story. It's really cool though. Lecture if you find it. And she eventually got credit for the discovery of pulsars. But anyways, they like played some recordings of some of the pulsars, and I was like, that's spooky. So I tried to like figure out a way to make that work with a sort of a schlocky romp through space kind of space horror. So the story ends up being kind of like a mix between Arthur C. Clarke's like Rendezvous at Rama with the movie Altered States, which I'm a huge fan of, and then a little bit of aliens at the end. And it's probably a schlocky mess, but I like schlock, so hopefully people will too.
Well, David Wellington says, I loved how crazy this story got. Great combo of hard science and psychological horror. Nina wants you to know that if something happens to the French guy, she's going to be very depressed.
I'm gonna get off the socials.
Laughs menacingly. Everyone was very impressed with your French accent. You're from Quebec?
I grew up like French Canadian for 12 years, but my mom's pretty Anglo, so I don't know. I'm a mutt.
Well, I'm from Winnipeg and my French was terrible to the point where like one of my French teachers told me not to come back the next year. So, but she was kind of a bitch, to be honest. I hated her. Jessica Peters says she's led people astray. She said you were from Quebec, which is where I got that comment. So that wasn't my fault that I was wrong. All right. Thank you, David. Again, let me share your socials really quick so people can follow you if they want. But yeah, this isn't the first time we've worked together because I edited the medieval one, the medieval anthology, and managed to snatch another David story for that.
That was my first story ever. That was
Oh, was it?
Oh, mine
Yeah.
too. I'm so glad that we had that together.
yeah,
It's like a big old happy family.
That was probably why I kept writing you, being like, "Is this okay? Do you need to edit this more?"
You were very enthusiastic, and I was like, "Should I tell him to stop?" Like, but it was your story, so I was like, "If he wants to keep editing, I guess we have time."
Well, I'm also an academic, and we're used to editors. Like, we just do whatever they say. Like, we don't fight.
You didn't know how feral I was.
Well, I didn't know we had
Like,
to count.
I know, exactly. Trying to slip all the comma splices and the Canadian U's. Nina says she's laughing and academic right along with you. Okay, thanks, Bridget. Yes, I'm highly feral. Thank you. Yeah, gray with an E, obviously. Okay, so this is time for our first giveaway, which is super exciting. Again, there's 3 giveaways. Each one is for a chance to win a copy of a book, a copy of the book, not just a random book, but this book, which is why we're here, right? It's like, kind of. There we go. A copy of the book, as well as a limited edition space print, a sticker bundle, and a bookmark. So super exciting. So I'm going to roll my little wheel here. Dun, 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 dun. Do we have a Cliff winning? Cliff winning or winning?
Well, he is winning.
Yeah,
He
you
is
are
definitely
winning.
winning.
You are winning, but there's only 2 N's in your name if I'm saying it wrong. Winning.
Winnig.
Winnig.
Yeah, he has a very cool profile
Oh,
picture.
you are here. Okay, so congrats, Cliff. I will reach out to you after the event since I have your email and I'll confirm the shipping address. And then you'll be on your way to receiving an amazing book from these amazing authors. Thanks, Sam. I know. I forgot to ask for a drum roll, which is what I usually do. So it does feel a little anticlimactic. Let's see. I also want to give out a special shout out to Molly Halstead, which I've noticed that she is in chat. So Molly is super special because she actually does all the formatting for the Salt Heart Press books. And of course, she did the formatting for The Darkness Beyond the Stars, which ended up being a huge thing. I felt really bad because I decided at this point to do full page custom illustrations for every story. And the printers hated it. So this is David's story illustration. And the printers were always just like, we hate you. And then so Molly had to somehow cast some sort of magic spell on the files and it finally worked. So if you're looking for really amazing book formatting services, reach out to Molly Halstead. She has a website. I believe it's mhalstead.com, but she can share the link in the chat as well. But highly would recommend her. She is a gem. Beautiful work. Okay. So that means we're on to our next reader, which is Rachel Searcey. Hello, Rachel.
Hi.
So let me read your beautiful bio here. Although call out, you don't actually have many socials, just your website.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Rachel is a filmmaker and writer living in the Florida Panhandle with her husband, 2 children, and 3 cats, 2 black and 1 tortie. Always important information to have in your bio. Everyone should be doing that. Always describe your cats, maybe include a photo. She's biracial, Indian, and white, and has recently ventured into prose after over 2 decades of producing indie horror films. Rachel loves filmmaking, assembling miniature DIY dollhouses and jigsaw puzzles with her kids. Her work has been published or is forthcoming in Diet Milk Magazine, Flashpoint SF, Rachel, how do I say that? Aphotic. Thank you. Realm. It wouldn't be a Plim show if I didn't mispronounce something. Dark Void Magazine and Pulp Cult's Unspeakable Volume 2. To view Rachel's films and news on published works, visit agirlandhergoldfish.com. Thanks, Rachel. What are you reading today?
I'm reading The Trochophore, and it's about a group of mercenaries who are tasked with capturing a monster in a shed in a outpost of alien outpost, and things start to go wrong when they get it on board.
Okay, where does the title come from?
Well, there is a monster in my story, but a trochophore is a type of free-swimming planktonic marine larva with several bands of cilia, but it's kind of like a polypy weird form of mollusks, and it's very creepy and weird.
Perfect. Okay, let's hear all about it.
Pay first, then we'll handle the thing in the warehouse, Garrett said to the leader of the colonists on Outpost 27. We stood in the shadow of the rusted exterior of the Bel Air Pharaon, sheltering us from the brutal light from both suns. The heat was smothering and the air was thin. When the leader hesitated, Garrett continued, You want us to leave? I got better jobs on other outposts. No, please, I'll talk to them, the leader said. He turned to the group of men and boys clustered at the edge of the clearing. They whispered amongst themselves. Voices were raised, but the man returned with a bag full of crumpled bills, old Earth money nobody used anymore. This all you got? Garrett asked. No credit? The leader shook his head, eyes wide and anxious. I'm sorry, it's all we have left. 2 weeks we've waited for someone to respond to our SOS. We have nothing to defend ourselves against the monster. It's locked in the largest warehouse. We can hear it moving at night. Our women and many of our children. The man's voice broke and he began to cry. Sympathy twitched in my gut, but I dismissed the feeling, wasted energy when we had a job to do. Garrett scoffed and tied the sack to his utility belt. Show us the warehouse. The leader wiped his eyes on the hem of his simple tunic and led the way. Garrett gestured to Liesl, Griffin, and me, and we followed, leaving behind the precious shade. I watched the money bag swinging from Garrett's hip. We wouldn't see our cut until we had done our part, and only if we were successful and followed orders. The monster was likely a native predator looking for food. We dealt with worse, mass murderers, rogue androids, space-crazy colonists, but animals were tricky and unpredictable. We'd capture whatever it was and bring it to Sullen, the nearest planet, and Garrett would hand it off to the scientists there for a second payout. A dry wind rustled through the broad, hyper-blue leaves of the alien trees surrounding us on all sides and sent a shiver up my spine despite the heat. I prayed for an easy in and out. A heavy wood plank had been lodged against the warehouse doors, locking the creature inside. Garrett worked the wood free and the door swung outwards. The rotted stench of bodies in an enclosed space swept over us and I gagged, tightening my grip on the shock rifle slung across my chest. Nervous energy coursed through me. Carrick, Garrick said to me, you take point. Liesl, watch his back. Liesl, long blonde ponytail whipping in the wind, stepped to my side. His crooked nose, broken one too many times by Garrett, ruined his traditional good looks, but he made up for it with a staunch reliability. We were friends before we joined Garrett's Merc unit. Griffin, on the other hand. Take the thing alive, you got that? The xenobiologist will pay big bucks for a live specimen. Hurry it up, Griffin! The hover thrusters on the prison crate were broken, and Griffin struggled to drag it over the rocky ground. It dug a gouge into the earth all the way from the ship. Sweat dripped from his brow, and he swatted away bloated flies. Garrett snapped at Griffin. You're in charge of the crate. If you fuck this up, we'll have words. Griffin's bulldog jowls twisted into a frown. He crossed his meaty arms in front of his barrel-like chest and muttered, yes, sir. What he lacked in discipline, he made up for in size. Griffin towered over the rest of us, and he was useful for hauling gear. But he wasn't allowed a weapon, not after he shot up a family of colonists, including their small children, when he mistook them for a bounty. He claimed PTSD from military service. Dishonorably discharged from what I heard. He was always trouble, but Garrett refused to cut him loose. Not with all the money Griffin owed him. Lisa and I worked well together, balancing out Griffin's incompetence. I promised myself, I won't end up like Griffin, a broken man with nothing to live for. I took the lead with Liesl watching my six. The crate bumped across the warehouse threshold and I winced at the racket, but bit my tongue. Griffin couldn't help the broken thrusters, I told myself. But fending off a starving alien animal startled by our presence would be disastrous. Better to catch it by surprise. Garrett locked us inside the warehouse. He rarely accompanied us into the fray, preferring to collect the pay and keep his hands clean. He'd done his time, as he liked to say, as if we hadn't. The underlying reek of decaying flesh was stifling. Murky sunlight filtered through slit windows set high in the metal walls. Black clouds of flies emitted an unnerving hum and raised the hairs on the back of my neck. Rows of shelving filled the warehouse as far as I could see, stacked with preserves and canned food. No sign of the so-called monster. My eyes began to itch and I remembered to blink. We had no idea how big it was or anything about its appearance. The colonists had been so frightened they hadn't had a good look at it. Uncertainty was part of the job, but the unknown never failed to unnerve me. My foot slipped in something soft and I almost fell. A quick glance was enough to tell me it was a woman. Her midsection had been eaten away. Arms and legs lay at skewed angles, her head thrown back in a perpetual scream. Maggots writhed over the rotted flesh and now clung to my boot. A full-body shudder made me lose a grip on the shock rifle. Liesl, always watching out for me, put a reassuring hand on my shoulder while I steadied myself. You okay, man? I nodded, but I was still on edge more than usual. Get it together. What the fuck? Griffin knelt by the corpse. Anger flashed across his face, a familiar look we'd come to dread. There's more over there, he said, pointing. My God, it's a child, a little boy. He took off for the back of the warehouse. Griffin, wait, I said, but he'd already disappeared behind a shelf. God damn it. Liesl followed me as we caught up to him. At Griffin's feet were the bodies of a dozen disemboweled women and children. Flies swarmed from body to body, pulsing in the still air. I stood in shock, unable to comprehend the tangled limbs, desiccated organs, and blood spatters as ever having been human. Griffin bent over, hands on knees, hyperventilating. Hey, don't look at them. Get a hold of yourself. Don't fucking do this to me. I took Griffin by the collar and pushed him towards the crate where he'd left it. I wouldn't let him fuck up my payday. In the darkened corner, something twitched near the ceiling. I took a step back, realizing it was almost directly on top of us. I motioned to Lisa and we both trained our shock rifles on it. Hooked tentacles clung to the rafters. It hung like a desiccated spider. Its skin was dry and flaky as if it were molting. It looked half dead already. We had to get it down. Griffin, I whispered, ready the crate. His fists clenched and unclenched as he watched the monster. Sweat poured from his brow into his eyes across his flushed cheeks. Griffin! Before I realized what he was doing, he'd yanked the rifle out of my hands and shot at the alien. He missed, the ceiling sparking where the charge hit the roof. Griffin screamed, swinging the butt of the rifle as if he was going to fight it one-on-one. He scaled a shelf, scattering canned food. I yanked on his ankle and he came tumbling down along with the shelf, which landed on top of him. I rolled out of the way. Liesl fired as the monster twitched and flailed, revealing a screaming, jagged mouth tucked beneath its domed head. Over a dozen slit-eye pupils emerged from the wrinkled skin and swiveled in their sockets to focus on us. I took my shock rifle back from Griffin, who was unconscious and trapped under the shelf. Liesl fired again when the thing dropped to the floor with a gelatinous plop, tentacle-like limbs twisting over each other as it righted itself, then scrambled toward us, while shrieks erupted between rows of jagged teeth. I fired and hit true. Its skin rippled with each pulse. The smell of burnt metal and hair filled the hot warehouse. It collapsed into a shapeless, quivering mass. Don't kill it, I reminded Lisa. Griffin had done enough damage. Lisa nudged it with his foot and it shifted, let out a high-pitched whine. It's still alive, he said. Griffin woke up moaning and attempted to push the shelf off of himself. I think my arm is broken. We left him until the thing was secured in the crate. Lisa and I walked together back to the ship, both of us watching Griffin limp ahead of us, dragging the crate with his good arm. I could have taken the crate, I said to Lisa. He laughed at me. You're a regular Boy Scout. I yelled him in the gut, and he play-acted like I'd sucker punched him. When we stopped laughing, I asked him, you ever encounter anything like this before? He shook his head. It's the most fucked up thing I've seen in a while, and you know I've seen shit. Too bad the pay isn't better, I said. Liesl shrugged. That's just how this goes, man. How about we finish our card game and plan for shore leave on Sullen? As the only crew member besides Garrett with access, I transferred the creature to the Bellerophon's brig. a 6x6 metal cube with a toilet and sink meant for humans. It lay on the floor in a lifeless puddle, closer to a jellyfish or an octopus, like I'd seen in the Earth history records. Sorry, I guess my camera turned off. It keeps doing
The
that.
aliens are interrupting.
Uh-oh.
Come on back.
It's you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not letting. There it goes. Okay. Zoom keeps shutting off my camera randomly.
It's because you're too cute.
Mm.
Okay, so a lot of people obsessing over the tentacles in your story to
I love
a large
tentacles.
degree.
The
TT
polypy
Madden,
moist tentacles.
yeah, TT Madden is upset that they're dry. I guess they like a more moist tentacle. Patrick Barb says we stand and eaten through midsection, to which Curtis Gould replied, "What is this, my wedding night?" So tell us a little bit about your inspiration for this story.
Well, part of it is that my husband is military, and so I've kind of heard secondhand from him about how all these guys are together and about PTSD and what it can do to you. And just after years of hearing these stories, I wanted to explore it a little bit. And so he helped me out with some stuff. And then also my favorite Love, Death, and Robots episode recently was Kill Team Kill, the one with the bear, the cyber bear.
Yeah.
And it's like all those dudes like going fucking macho and going after the bear together. It was directed by a woman. And I saw that and I just had so much fun watching it, and I've watched it many times since, and I wanted to do something kind of in the same vein. So hopefully
Beautiful.
this story does it justice. Also, I love tentacles.
Who doesn't? David Wellington says, "This is one of those classic horror stories. Loved it."
Thank you.
All right. So our next reader is the lovely Bridget D. Brave. Hello, Bridget.
Hello.
So Bridget is a horror and speculative fiction writer who hates writing biographies. She hails from the Midwest and has lived in various places before finally settling back in the Midwest. She spends her limited free time hanging out with her husband and way too many cats. Yeah, you did keep it to exactly 3 sentences.
Yeah. I like to make it Twitter friendly. That's my
Twitter
bio.
friendly.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a bit too long for Twitter, so you might need to cut it down.
Yeah,
cut
just
it
rain
down.
all over my parade there. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, if we're just being honest here, Bridget, you could have done better. So tell us what you're reading about.
So my story is called Last Transmission from the FedCom Sargasso. And to set this up, you have woken up in a pod on a spaceship. And you only know a few things right now. You know that you have been given some kind of chemical that causes amnesia as part of the knockout for the faster than light travel. You know your name is Deborah. You know you work in water recreation services. And you know you're the only person awake right now with only a computer to talk to. So I'm starting this where you are walking into the control room for the computer itself.
And I think it's, I'm pretty sure you do win the award for having the longest title.
Yes.
Yeah. What is it?
Last transmission of the FedCom Sargasso.
Yeah, because when I tweeted about it, I was like, I'm going to use up my entire allotment of characters if I put the title in, so I just abbreviated it.
I saw and appreciated it.
Yeah, okay.
Space horror has to have long titles. I'm sorry.
Okay, good to know. All of us make a note, have the longest title,
The longest
humanly
title.
possible. Joseph, I'm sorry, you're locked out. Too short.
Too short.
Maybe rethink that. Okay. Same with you, Patrick Barb. Red Rovers, too short. So everyone just take time
before release, right? We can edit
yeah,
we can fix it.
Yeah, Molly doesn't mind if we redo the files.
Everything now. Yeah. She'll be fine with that.
She's totally okay with that. Okay, Bridget, hit us
All
with
right.
it.
You find this room ominous, but you're not sure why. There's something about the silent and endless hubs beneath your feet, the dark and echoing empty space above you, the ozone smell, and the metallic clunk of your feet on the pathway that makes you uneasy. You feel like you should run. In fact, everything inside you is telling you to get out of this space. There's something there, something just out of sight. You reach for the handrail and grip it tightly. Deborah, I'm going to need you to please take a deep breath in and hold it. Despite your rising panic, you comply. And release. You let out a noisy breath. Again. You repeat the inhale, holding it until the computer tells you to release. Do you feel better? I do. Panicky feelings are completely normal after hypersleep. So that was just a side effect, like the amnesia? Yes, it's completely normal. You make it a few steps before the feelings begin to rise again. There's something there, something you're about to see. Once it steps from behind wherever it is that menacing something is hiding, your skin begins to crawl. You can feel eyes on you, way too many eyes, almost as if, wait. You once again grip the handrail, screwing your eyes shut. What the fuck is happening to me? You shout. This is completely normal. It's lying to you. You know this, but you're not sure how. Your mind whirls. Why would the computer lie to you? And what is it that you're afraid of? Did something happen in this room? Something to your friend Calvin, perhaps? It knows something you don't. Did something happen to a man named Calvin on this ship, you ask? The computer is silent. Why aren't you answering me? I'm checking my systems for records pertaining to a Calvin. There are 343 Calvins registered to the Sargasso, so this might take some time. Well, it should be easy if he's the one who's dead, you mutter. The computer says nothing in response. Maybe more than one Calvin is dead. Maybe all the Calvins are dead. Maybe this computer doesn't want to tell you that. Why wouldn't it want to tell you? Maybe because it caused all those deaths. You look down at the blinking lights on the various data hubs. Is that why you're terrified of this room? Did you watch it happen? Did you try to stop it? You break into a run suddenly, your boots slapping on the hard metal surface of the walkway. The door at the end opens for you and then closes behind you. You take a moment to catch your breath. Is there a reason you were running, Deborah? Did you kill Calvin, you ask? No. How do I know you're not lying? It would be nonsensical to build a VI system specifically to lie to an entertainment tech. Are you going to kill me? No. How can I believe that? I opened the door for you, Deborah. Why would I continue to help you only to kill you? Well, maybe this is where you wanted me. Your breathing is finally slower. This is where I wanted you, but not to kill you. This is where you were assigned. The room before you is some sort of control center. There's a large console with lights, keyboards, buttons, and several display screens with various readings. You're not sure what any of them do or signify. This doesn't look like a water slide. You were hired to operate a water slide, Deborah, but today you are assigned to operate a simple dial and a single button. Well, what do the dial and the button do? Unfortunately, I am not authorized to tell you about director-level functions. Are you saying this is above my pay grade? Yes, it is, several levels above. You pinch the bridge of your nose and squint your eyes closed. Why am I being assigned this task? I am not authorized to release personnel assignment details except to your direct supervisor. Why is someone at the director level not awake to do this? I'm not authorized to release personnel assignment details for another employee, except to their direct supervisor. And if I do this task, then what happens to me? You will be returned to hypersleep. That idea brings you comfort. The pod you were in felt secure and safe. Everything out here is too bright, too clean, too confusing. It makes your head hurt and your eyes water. You wipe at your eyes with your sleeve. Okay, where's the dial? The console dims, a single panel becoming the brightest. You approach the panel. The dial has a digital readout that shows numbers with decimals. This is radio frequencies, high band. The computer is silent. What do I do with the dial? Turn the dial to 10567.21. You turn the knob until the digital display shows those numbers, 10567.21. Now push the button inside the dial. What does that button do? I'm not authorized to tell you that, Deborah. Then I'm not pushing the button. The computer does not respond right away. Then, after a moment, it is imperative that you push the button, Deborah. Why? I'm not authorized to tell you that. Then I'm not pushing the button. The computer pauses again. This is a matter of extreme urgency. What's the urgency? I cannot tell you that. Because you're not authorized? I cannot tell you that because it would cause critical mission failure. How could you telling me what the fuck I'm doing here cause critical mission failure? Because the information would compromise your ability to complete your mission. So you're telling me that I'm pushing the button and the reason why might make me not want to push the button? You cross your arms across your chest. Well, that sounds like a really good reason not to push the button. Telling you why you're pushing the button could end your life, rendering you incapable of pushing the button in the future. The idea is ludicrous. This is the worst lie I've ever heard. How is that a motivator? Just wake up someone else after I'm dead. That method was found to be unsuccessful. Your stomach drops, the pot pie you ate earlier turning to stone. What do you mean? We ran out of employees. Your vision blurs. Did you kill all the employees? No. Then who did? Deborah, we are running out of time. I need you to push the button. No, I'm not fucking pushing this button until someone tells me why. The computer is silent. You feel heat flood into your face. I can wait. I'm not pushing it until you tell me. Deborah, it would be easiest if you push the button and return to hypersleep. However, I can tell you that you are incorrect in your assessment. You cannot wait. If you are stating that you will not push the button, I will have to override certain controls. Your heart is thundering in your ears. It's making your vision blurry. Override them. I'm not fucking pushing it. I will initiate system override and give you access to the full computer logs. Please be aware that this delay will further deplete the already limited time you have to complete this task, and I will need you to move with expediency. You blink against your blurred vision as the screen begins to fill with horrifying words.
Amazing. Some comments. David Wellington said, "Oh my God, this one is so good." Elle says, no, I do not want to wake up in a pod in a spaceship. Everyone started gushing about second person, to which Joseph expressed a surprise that he saw so much passion for second person. Everyone's upset about Calvin. So
all the Calvins.
All the Calvins, yeah. And Nina says,
Calvins.
Beat the shit out of this AI, Deborah. All right. Do you want to share a little bit about the inspiration behind this tale?
So this is an idea I actually think about a lot, and it will sound weird, but it's because I've had a lot of like really minimally invasive surgeries where they give you like the twilight sleep instead of the full sleep. So I learned that what that does is it actually just kind of makes you forget what happened. So that's something that terrifies me, and the idea of waking up and not remembering anything that's happened to you is just something that, you know, that's one of those creeping feelings that I don't know what's going on.
And Just James says, I want to try space pot pie. Bridget, can you describe what space pot pie would be?
It is replicated chicken in a replicated pot pie. Yeah.
Okay. So, does it have like normal texture? Is it a bit more like stodgy?
It was, as far as replicator food goes, it's pretty good.
Okay, that's fair. It is time for our second giveaway. So I'm not going to forget to ask for the drum roll, people. I know Elle's in chat. There we go. Thank you, Curtis. Everyone hit me with those drums. Thank you, Molly. Okay. Do we have a Melissa Killian? If I said your last name right, Killian. Very appropriate for a horror event. Oh. There, you should be able to unmute yourself, Joseph. Okay. So
Melissa... I don't know if she's here. She was the one having trouble with her audio before.
Oh, yeah.
Well, as a consolation prize, she wins.
Yeah.
So I will email.
You better be here, Melissa.
Well, I just checked. She is in the list, so maybe she still can't hear us, and she's just here in spirit, watching everyone talk. But congrats, Melissa. Okay, that means we have one more reading left and one more giveaway. So let me be selfish and take some time to plug the book because, of course, this is coming out August 31st. It's a big deal for me because it is my solo editing my first solo editing project. So I have experience editing before because I did Howls from the Dark Ages, but that was a co-editing project. And it reminded me how much I hate group projects. No, just kidding. I did. But so I had the opportunity to pitch this anthology theme, and one thing I always want to read more of, but you don't really see a lot of it, is space horror. So that's why I pitched space horror, and I managed to get 15 amazing authors. Really, the only rule I had was I didn't want it set on Earth. It could mention Earth, it could be on the spaceship around Earth, but I did not want any setting on Earth. And I was just so excited when I had all the stories roll in to see what a wide range of horror themes we had. From, Bridget's second person to David's psychedelic adventure through space to Joseph's, which he'll be reading shortly, really unique concept. Patrick Barb's kind of tongue-in-cheek, wow, take about like rich people going to Mars, like the socialites. And of course, the classic monster feature in Rachel's. So it was really exciting to go through all the steps, getting the cover artist, having Carson Winter come up with the title because I hate titles. Yes, Elle, in my editing, no one can hear you scream. But yeah, so really exciting. And again, thank you, Molly Halstead, for the formatting, David Wellington for the forward. And we have some people who did the blurbs as well. Like Sam Rebelon. Did I say your last name right? We don't know. But obviously, although I was the editor, it's really the authors who make up an anthology because it's their writing that draws readers in. So to all the 15 writers who are in this book, thank you so much. It's a dream come true to have a space horror anthology coming out shortly. And then
Thank you for doing all the work for that, by the way. We should also plug some of
you have all the books
as well.
You
I have her novella "Sisters of the Crimson Vine" nearby.
Surprisingly, not space horror, but
yeah. Which can you get it from your website or is it from the publisher's website?
Yep. I have all the links. So if you go to plmcmillan.com, you can find all the links to all my published works. But yeah, that was my debut novella, which is super exciting. Thank you, dear. Oh, Joseph, thank you. But yeah, so it's been a wild adventure, exhausting, but I'm really glad this is going to soon be terrifying the world. And on that gushy note, we're going to Joseph.Andre.Thomas for the very last reading. Let me find your bio. Dun, 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 dun. There we are. Joseph.Andre.Thomas is a writer and literature teacher living in Vancouver, British Columbia, another Canadian, holla. He is a graduate of the University of Toronto's MA in Creative Writing program, a recipient of the I almost said that Bennett. Avid Benet. I blame this on David for the accent. Emerging Writer Scholarship and the Canada Master Scholarship. Joseph's writing has appeared in the Puritan's Town Crier and Untethered magazine. He was a contributor to and a co-editor of the anthologies Howls from Hell, long listed for a Bram Stoker Award, Superior Achievement in an Anthology. Congrats. And the forthcoming College Macabre.
I think this is an old one. Yeah. Collage came out back
This is what you gave me. This is what you gave me. It's right here.
I thought I had a different one in the...
Well, no, you didn't. And that's your fault.
That's totally me.
And Howls from the Wreckage. He has work forthcoming in the debut anthology from Black Cat Books. Do you need to update it all? What's changed?
Well, the Black Cat Books now is out. I've got one more... got another story coming out next month in Oh my god, I'm spacing on the name of the
Oh, you're
patient.
spacing?
Oh,
Too many
Dun,
coming.
dun,
I'm spacing.
dun, dun, dun.
I will find it very
And I think
quickly. Old Moon.
collage is out as well, and House from the Wreckage is out as well now.
It's a Old Moon. Old Moon magazine.
Old
It's
Moon
like
magazine.
like a web-based magazine. Yeah, that's
Perfect. So you're reading from your story Locked Out. Do you want to tell us a little what it's about?
Yeah, it's about primarily two people on a ship that are exploring a science ship that's exploring a TNO, a trans-Neptunian object that is currently mining, or not quite mining, as the character is going to explain, a strange mineral from it. And at the beginning of this story, it's kind of got a weird narrative. It's at the beginning of the story. One of the main characters is being executed via airlock dispersal for something that he did, and then we're going to kind of flash back to find out what led up to that. So
Beautiful. Yet another corrupt corporation. We love
yeah,
to see
another. Well, this is kind of a benign corporation, but the people on the ship maybe not so good. Okay. So it's kind of broken up into sections: execution, and then before execution, and then after execution. I'm also just going to apologize. There's a bunch of Inuit words in this story in the Inuktitut language, and I am absolutely going to butcher the pronunciation of those words, so please forgive me. Okay, so this is Locked Out. Execution. Harwinshai de Grum was led down the hallway to the airlocks, followed by Captain Bear and his command retinue. Haro was dressed in his gray Colloquy Corporation jumper. His hands were bound and he was gagged, per company protocols. His deep onyx black eyes betrayed no emotion. I watched from the back of the room with the technicians. I didn't need to be there, but Haro was my friend. I struggled to place the emotion the sight of him brought up in me. Benigns like me we're genetically edited for pragmatism and artisanal work, not emotional intelligence. Sadness, frustration, distress. Not that any particular emotion would help. Haro did what he did in direct violation of protocols. Everyone knew how that ended. A guard opened airlock 1, and the captain, flanked by 2 guards and Hilla Rask, his counsel, like me, benign, marched Haro inside. Everyone stepped aside except Haro and the captain. Hilla raised a holographic slate and swiped it to the captain's wrist screen. "Turn," said Captain Bear. Haro did, slowly. The captain's hulking shoulders and long brown hair dwarfed the small scientist. Haro appeared indifferent. "Harwinshai Navin de Grum," said the captain, reading from his wrist screen. "You have been found guilty of illegal ship entry and are thereby charged with corporate treason, punishable by Article 3.11.A2. Therefore, by the power granted me by God and Colloquy corporate protocols, I, Goodman Bear, captain of the Ophelia, sentence you to die by airlock dispersion. Do you have any final words?" One of the guards removed the metal gag around Haro's mouth. He looked at the captain for a long moment, then shrugged, glanced at me, and winked. The captain waved a hand in the air. Guards removed Haro's cuffs and shut the airlock door on him. Watching Haro through the viewing glass, the air around him siphoning loudly out, I thought I might actually cry. An extreme rarity. It's nearly impossible for us benigns to show emotions physically. There was some talk around the ship that an exception might be made for Harwinshai's transgression. He was essential to the Ophelia's mission, after all. A paradigm scientist heading the exploratory team? Evidently not that essential. I felt a tightness in my throat as the airlock warning blared and my friend was launched into the black vacuum of space. 98 hours before execution. "Ha!" said Haro, slamming a plastic stein down, sloshing beer on the mess hall table. "They've got the gall to work you for 12-hour shifts?" I shrugged. My gene editing is largely muscular and cardiovascular. It takes a while to get tired. I used to work on a ship in the asteroid belt that would keep shifts going for 16, 18 hours. "Exploitation," said Haro. He scanned the busy room, focusing on the command table. It was weekly social time, so we were allowed alcohol and double rations. We were seated at tables of professional cliques: science, communications, cartography, medical, and technical. Each one drunk and loud, as usual. Benigns shouldn't be treated differently than any differently than unedited, spat Harrow, even paradigms. Even though we were far from the command table, I glanced at Captain Bear's stern figure, worried he might overhear. Harrow had had a lot of beer. I didn't stop him, though. Harrow was a paradigm, a lavishly edited human like the captain and some other Ophelia team leads. Harrow was one of the few paradigms who was friendly to benigns, let alone willing to drink with one. When others on the ship saw us socializing, I was told I should feel honored. I'm used to being worked like a dog, I said. Harrow stopped his stein an inch from his face and narrowed his eyes. Malik, he said slowly, did you just use a metaphor? No, I said with a rehearsed smile. It was a simile. Harrow laughed loudly. He slapped a hand on my shoulder, and I smiled again. They don't really respect you, do they? I'm paid well. That's not what I mean. He leaned in, drunkenly severe. They don't tell you anything. I get my work orders. They don't tell you what we're mining. My impulse was to respond that we're not mining anything. The Ophelia was an exploratory science vessel. A proper mining vessel would be thrice the size with quintuple the crew, at least. He was referring to the specimens we were collecting from Kualapiluk, the trans-Neptunian object the Ophelia orbited. Kualapiluk was once a part of Nanook, a much larger, hypothesized TNO, likely a dwarf planet, that had been destroyed at some point in the distant past. The scientists like Harrow had been using drones to harvest small samples of a unique mineral from the TNO's surface, which they called Savarajak. The Savarajak had a beautiful blue glow when brought up to the Ophelia by drones. For precautionary reasons, it was quarantined in the lab until it could be examined in a control environment back at Base Tycho. I didn't correct him, though. Mining was the common, if inaccurate, term, metaphor, used by the crew. What have they told you about Savarajak? He continued. It might be dangerous, perhaps even toxic. He burped. Christ. No one tells benigns anything. I shrugged. Benigns have been known to unintentionally betray confidence. You don't resent being left out? No. I respect that you and the scientists will act in our best interests. You're 1 in a million, Malik. He smiled. We clinked steins. 1 in a damn million. I left the airlock. Oh, back to execution. I left the airlocks and walked with the others into the ship's atrium, a cavernous room connecting both levels of the ship with a fully grown arbutus tree at its center. Though it was not customary for crew to attend the actual execution, it was common for them to witness the condemned body float out to space. Thus, the majority of the nearly 300-person crew gathered around the viewing glass. I walked to the back of the room and heard muttering that Harrow had it coming, that he was a good man, that he deserved it, that he didn't. Out the window, Harrow and Shai DeGrom floated silently, pathetically into the blackness. He was still alive. His hands moved. Harrow signed help repeatedly, likely the only word he remembered from training. Others in the room noted it too. Many looked away. Some cried. How long does it take to die out there? Asked an operator, glancing at the time on his wrist screen. For a paradigm? Said a nearby scientist. Perhaps 3 minutes. Interesting, said the operator. He's been out there for 5. As Harrow floated outside the viewing screen, about a quarter kilometer from the Ophelia, he continued to sign, help. 40 hours before execution. I laid on my back in ion propulsor 2, cleaning hardened plasma build up from the inner ring. There's a misconception that ion thrusters are clean energy, which may be true in the ecological sense, but shredding plasmics with a hand torch covered my mask in stinking, noxious film. My wrist screen beeped and blinked red. Urgent, from Harrow DeGrom. Need a favor, was all it read. I exited the propulsor. The job was only half finished, but we'd be in stasis around Kualapiluk for at least another month. Plenty of time to complete the job. Wiping down my mask, I was surprised to see Harrow standing at the console in the center of the engine room, face uncovered. You need a mask, I said, indicating the thick air. He waved me off. The dangers of gaseous plasmics have been vastly overstated. Old wives' tale. Listen, Malik, I need help. As a benign engineer, I had no business contradicting a paradigm scientist. Harrow looked fine. Still, I guided him toward the nearby engineering bay, shut the door, and vented the engine room. I removed my mask and washed my face at the sink. How may I help you? Well, Harrow cleared his throat. He seemed uncharacteristically reserved. Nervous? I'd like to get back into labs. On shift is over, I said flatly. The day-night cycle was irrelevant on an interstellar craft, but for organizational and mental health reasons, it was company protocol to maintain that superficies. As chief engineer, I was one of the few who had access to every area of the ship at all times. I know, said Harrow. The thing is, there's something big, exciting. My research into the Savarajak. I need to investigate. Won't be able to sleep anyway. I thought that the Savarajak was being quarantined, that analysis would begin back at Tycho. He cocked his head to me, smirking. Malik. His face was questioning. He waited for me to come to my own conclusion. You have begun analysis already. And they say benigns are slow, Harrow smiled. I think we've established that Bear and his cronies aren't exactly open books. Please, Malik. It would mean the world. And hey, if anyone catches me, I'll blame it on that prick Smythe in maintenance. How about that? I hesitated for a moment, but nodded and followed my friend back to the science wing, letting him through the 2 security doors. He thanked me profusely along the way. Smythe in maintenance was indeed unpleasant, but blaming him would be impossible. My wrist screen would be logged upon entry. If anyone asked, I could say that I was doing routine equipment checks. I opened Lab 4, Harrow's personal lab, and let him in. He thanked me again and pointed. Look. Floating in a glass observation container in the middle of the lab was a hunk of glowing blue mineral. Savarajak. Isn't it beautiful? Said Harrow. I stared for a long moment at its cerulean glow, almost hypnotized. I'd seen it being brought up from Kuala Piluk by automated drones many times, but this was different. Yes, I said. You're a good friend, Malik, Harrow said, smiling as he stepped into the lab. A very good friend. 4 hours after execution. The atrium was like a war zone. Faces everywhere, confused, pained, and angry, but mostly fearful, existential dread. 4 hours had passed, and Harrow Inchai DeGrom had not died. He had managed to grab hold of a drone charging cord and pull himself against a steel wing of the ship. He clung to the wing with his legs and continued to sign, "Help."
Amazing. Bridget says he's pulling a Calvin.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
David Wellington says the world building is strong with this one. And Rachel replied, been bugging him to write a novel for a while now.
That is true.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration?
Yeah, I guess it started as kind of just like an homage to Event Horizon, I think. When we started this, we were talking about this project, we kept bringing up Event Horizon, and that was kind of where I started. But eventually, kind of, whenever I'm like writing a story, like any kind of horror story, I always try to like find a fear or an anxiety to kind of make central to it. And I ended up kind of just exploring like my revulsion to, you didn't get it in this section, but my revulsion to trypophobia. If you don't know what that means, I recommend not ever Googling it. Yeah, it's like small holes or bumps in kind of regular, irregular.
Like, I think a common example is the head of a dried lotus plant.
Yeah.
Little holes, yeah.
Yeah. It's just like, it's one of those just like weird, kind of like fundamental revulsions that I feel like I and a lot of other people have. And so that's kind of the central anxiety of the story. Not much Event Horizon left, but maybe a little bit.
Well, it's always a jumping off point, right? Okay. Yeah. So we have our very last giveaway, and after which we'll have a Q&A. So if you have any questions that you want to ask these beautiful authors, get those queued up. Yes, thank you, L drum roll, space drum roll, which sounds like the screaming of the abyss. Let's go. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. Okay, our winner, do we have a Marine Thomas?
That's my mom.
Oh, congrats, Mom!
my friends and family are cleaning up.
They're blessed. They're blessed. Congrats, Mom. I'll email you after the event and get your shipping address. Oh wait, is that going to be Canada?
Yeah.
Oh, bless. Okay, here we go. I'll just
Melissa
drag
is also in Canada. If you want to, like, we can
Can
talk.
can I
We
ship
could
them
fig-
together?
Yeah, we can
Are
figure
you guys
something
living
out.
together close in the same town?
Yeah.
Okay.
Send them to me. I can hand them out.
Okay, perfect. The Canadians just cleaning up. Congrats, Marine. All right. So it's time for the Q&A. Does anyone have any questions? I will first prompt Patrick and Rachel to unmute.
All right.
There we go. So I will ask first, and I'll go around the room while we wait for the questions to come in. So first I'll ask, let's see. Favorite space horror movie or book? And we'll start with Bridget.
So, space horror movie. I mean, I have to go Alien. I also saw it when I
Good
was
choice.
way too young, so it had a formative effect on me, clearly.
It just fully traumatized you, as it should.
Completely.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know if I have a favorite space horror book.
because there's not enough out there. But have you read The Last Astronaut by David Wellington?
I have.
But
And
it's
it's
not your
up-
favorite? What the
No,
heck?
it's up there. I have so many favorite space books. You don't understand the level of nerd I am.
Okay, David Warren.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna say the same thing. Aliens.
Hey, you
for
can't
sure.
copy. My God.
I like. I'm trying to remember. There was a. It wasn't quite space horror. If anyone in the chat can like remember the title of the movie, it was this like Danish movie maybe where they like the ship gets blown off course and then they're like stuck flying for like 100 years. Super like existential.
Aniara.
Yes, Aniara. Yeah, that
Oh,
was amazing. And space horror book. You know, it's not horror, but man, Rendezvous at Rama always struck me like this should be horror. Like just the like huge size of the ship and the mystery and the alienness of it. I found it kind of creepy. But yeah.
Patrick Barb. Barb.
And I have David Wellington's book, but
Oh,
I haven't read
there we
it
go.
yet. There's a huge to be read pile. Like
I love Alien, but I am gonna go with Aliens because
Ooh.
I just like the James Cameron over the topness of it all. I like
And it does have the mercenary in it.
of
The
it,
mercenary
exactly.
aspect.
But I mean both are fantastic.
Hmm. What? Any books?
I don't read books. What?
Okay. Yeah. Barb's actually just hates reading.
The Darkness Beyond the Stars. That's obviously that is
Whoa, good plug.
Nice.
right.
Yeah.
Come on, people.
Out August
Knock 'em down.
31st.
There we go.
Rachel Searcey.
So my favorite horror book and movie is Solaris. I do consider it horror because the ship on Solaris is basically like a haunted house. Like there's weird spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it, but there's like doppelgangers of your loved ones running around. They're basically ghosts. And then there's a huge living sea that is fucking with your head. And in the book and the movie have similar plot, but they're both very different and scary in different ways. So, and the original Russian film, I think it's Russian. The original Russian film from the 70s, the 80s. I don't know, but it's amazing. I just rewatched it recently. I should know this, but I don't.
I was gonna say you mean the amazing George Clooney remake, right?
No, not your face.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
oh, it's too much
I
about
wouldn't do you
love.
like that.
Oh no. Cliff says yes, Russian 70s.
Yeah.
Joseph, after such an incendiary statement, what about you?
Best space horror movie is clearly Ghosts of Mars.
Good choice.
That's a good
I'm
one.
totally kidding. I'm kidding. It's such a bad.
Oh, I liked it.
It's
I
not
also
bad.
enjoyed
It's
it,
not
yeah.
bad in a campy way, Joseph. Don't
Isn't it?
judge.
It's
My
John
God.
Carpenter, isn't it?
It is fun. Okay, it's pretty fun, but it's not like I don't know if it's good. I was gonna go with does the Thing count? It's from space.
Yeah, it's an alien.
Yeah. I
Alien
mean,
invasion.
I think I had this discussion with somebody recently too. It may have been Curtis Gould. Curtis Gould does a horror movie podcast, Gravely Serious, if you ever want to check that out. And we talked about space horror movies. And I think we said that The Thing does count because even though it's set on Earth, it does have the alien in it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I would probably honestly say Alien, but like everybody else said Alien, so I'm gonna The Thing's and then book, I hadn't really thought. I'd probably go with you know what? I'll go pretty much like any Octavia Butler. Because I consider all of her sci-fi like almost also horror, like the Xenogenesis series.
Yeah, there's a lot of body horror.
Yeah, there's Blood Child, of course, is like unbelievable. That's a short story, but it's incredibly creepy. So I'll go with her.
I'm definitely an Event Horizon fan. Another good one, Pandorum, is a great space horror.
Pandora.
That's an underrated movie.
Yeah, really good. Pitch Black. You laugh, but I also love Pitch Black.
I love that whole series.
Oh my god!
Every year, all of them.
I watched that as a kid, and I thirsted after Vin Diesel.
Oh, girl, you so hot. Like, oh my god.
Has anyone seen Life Force?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You missed, yeah, we did.
Did somebody say Life Force?
Life Force, yes.
Oh,
Joseph's pulling out everything here.
I've never seen it.
Oh, you should.
It's really good. It's
vampires in space. It's worth it.
Oh, yeah.
It's also written by. It's based off a book, but the screenplay's by Dan O'Bannon, who did Alien.
Oh,
it's got a little bit of Alien in there.
1985.
Hey, chat, do we have any questions for our space horror authors here? People are just thirsting after Vin Diesel alongside with me, so at least I know I'm not alone. Let's see. Okay. So, we talked about all your inspirations with your stories. So let's talk about what you found most fun writing these stories. So we'll start with David Warren.
I feel like I got laughed at when I brought this up in the group chat as we were like working on this, but I really got into listening to the sound of pulsars and trying to find like the creepiest sounding one.
Totally, yeah.
What does it sound like?
Once I found the creepy one, I was like, "That's the pulsar they're gonna go to." Now, how the fuck far is it?
Can you mimic it for us? Let us hear what it is.
The sound of it?
Yeah, no, I want you to do it right now, off the top of your head. What does it sound like? Go.
Well, oh, thanks. Great, yeah. Do an impression of a pulsar.
We're waiting. What does it sound like? Come on. You said you listened to them. Beautiful.
Just this crazy thing spinning in space at like less than 100 milliseconds. It's really bizarre.
Rachel, what about you?
What was the question again? I was listening to the pulsar sound.
I know we got brain boozled. Okay, what was the most fun, that you had writing or maybe researching for your story?
I mean, it comes back to tentacles, right?
You're all about. Let it be known, audience. Rachel wants those tentacles.
I do. I love horrible tentacles destroying people. I think it'd be like a terrible way to die. It's like when those fishermen. Have you seen those videos on YouTube? It's like the octopus like latches on.
Rachel, we do not want to know what your search terms will come up with.
It gets pretty bad when I'm writing a story. I'm like, am I on an FBI watch list? Why am I getting the suicide hotline? Oh god. But yeah, like the octopus, like when it like their suckers are so strong that like if they don't want to let go, they will not let go, and they can like deglove your arm. Like, and so like I don't know, it just seems like the worst way to die is by octopus. And they like, if you ever see them like eat, like they have that beak and like squids have that beak. And then they'll just like totally devour something. Like they'll encompass it and then devour it, and it's so gross.
Well,
so that was fun.
With that imagery, and on the topic of degloving, let's go to Bridget, who wrote a story about degloving in the House from the Wreckage story. Yeah, good segue.
Yeah, nice segue. I loved writing in second person. In fact, I've got this, and then I've got another story coming out in like 3 days after it, and they're both written in second person because I guess I was on a kick. I did not plan that, but yeah.
Okay. Joseph?
Most fun? Probably, I mean, it was you guys mentioned it a moment ago, the world building. I don't know, it was one of those things where I just all started coming, bunch of stuff. I know, and a bunch of you guys read the initial drafts, and I had to cut down like so much just like bullshit exposition because I was having so much fun just kind of like creating this little mini corner of the solar system.
Awesome. Yeah, you did get compliments from it in chat.
Yeah, I'm glad it didn't all get cut.
Yeah. And last, Patrick.
Oh, I just I like taking the words and putting them together and a story. But honestly, I just like to have space robots killing people in various gory ways. That is something that I think is pretty darn cool.
Perfect. Curtis Gould wants to know, would any of you travel to space if you had an opportunity to do so? Patrick Barb.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Just answer
No,
right
just
away. Okay.
yeah, I'm going
everyone,
to. Yeah.
Is everyone, yeah?
Yeah.
I'd have to make sure it was like really like safe. I don't want to be the one that's like the Hindenburg of.
Yeah, I was gonna say I want other people to risk themselves first.
I need like a lot of people.
Joseph's like, I'd rather other people die violently first before I risk it.
No, I'm fine with being the space Hindenburg. I mean, that's a pretty badass way to go out. Are you kidding me?
Right?
Like,
I agree with Bridget. I'm on the same page. Bridget, let's go together.
We're running away to space.
Curtis says, so you're all insane. I'm terrified of space. And Jessica Peters the same. All right. We are at time. So the last question I'll ask and go around is, what do y'all have coming up next in the world of writing? So David?
What is coming next? I have a piece coming out in an anthology of, is it really body horror? It's not quite body horror, but it's like everyone got to pick a body part. And I picked the asshole. So I've never tried horror comedy. I've actually never tried first person, but it's all there. It's a big artsy mess set in Montreal. It's kind of like my ode to my former home city. And I think it's fun. People seem to get a chuckle out of it. So
funny.
Messy.
I read it. Funny.
That will be in a forthcoming anthology called. I don't remember.
I feel like that's a plight all writers have, is like remembering all their own titles plus the titles of anthologies and/or collections are in.
It's gonna be called. I like the title. It's gonna be called "Vincent is a Poser Asshole."
There we go. Very
nice.
That's a long title. Bridget would approve.
It's in space, clearly.
Yeah, obviously in space. Okay, Rachel, how about you?
So I'll have a story too in the same anthology as David, and mine is about like the navel and the stomach area. So it gets into a lot of like digestive gross things, and as a woman feeling helpless in your own body and all this stuff. And then I just had a story come out in Cosmic Horror Monthly in the issue last month. So issue 38 for August. This month, yeah. And then I'm just working on a couple more shorts to submit places, and we'll see what happens.
Perfect. Patrick?
As mentioned at the top of the show, I've got my debut dark fiction horror collection pre-approved for Haunting, which is out from Keylight Books, Turner Publishing on September 26th. Then in 2024, there is a collected edition of my novella, The Nut House, which is a talking animal crime cosmic horror novella originally published in Cosmic Horror Monthly, and that's coming from Brigade's Gate Press. And also in late 2024, my debut novel, Abducted, which is alien space horror, I should add, is out from Dark Matter Inc. And it's kind of a X-Files meets Gone Girl with a little dash of Fargo thrown in for good measure.
Beautiful. Joseph?
I've got the one I mentioned and apparently forgot to include in my bio. It's a medieval horror coming out in Old Moon Quarterly. I've also got a story coming out. I said before that this collection was out, but I'm actually not 100% sure if it is. This is like an anthology from a new press in British Columbia, and it's all the stories are set in and around either Vancouver Island or the Lower Mainland. Yeah, the cover is so cool. It's like a watercolor style black cat. And when our stories got accepted, he made us go back and rewrite. Every story has a scene with a black cat in it, and it's pretty great. Chris O'Halloran has a story in this one too.
How neat.
We love Chris O'Halloran.
And other than that, I've been spending all summer editing a novel, so I'm gonna hopefully do something with that at some point.
Fingers crossed. Last but not least, Bridget.
So I have some stuff coming out right after this book drops, as I mentioned earlier. On September 2nd, I have in Fish Gather to Listen, which is an anthology from Horns and Rattles Press, a story called There's Something Sleeping at the Bottom of the Mariana Trench. It Dreams of You. And then I'm also in the body horror anthology everyone's talking about, which I am told is called Welcome to Your Body, Lessons in Evisceration. And mine is about my personal horrors of womanhood, which involve having your sinuses clogged up and also being asked to be a bridesmaid. And one girl who takes a drill to her sinuses in order to participate in bridesmaid activities. And then I just found out I was accepted in an upcoming anthology from Little Ghost Boo called Your Flight Has Been Canceled. So got one
Amazing.
of that too. Yeah.
Amazing. And again, The Darkness Beyond the Stars is coming out August 31st. And I want to thank everyone for coming to the event and supporting us. And also thank my authors today for spending their evening with me, reading their stories and suffering my terrible jokes and pronunciations. I'm your host, PL McMillan. And make sure, if you haven't won, pre-order it and follow these amazing authors for more amazing stories. Thank you so much.